Well, hey there. How are you doing? So, um, it's Saturday, November the 1st, 2025. And I thought I would share some thoughts with you. I went for my little walk about a week ago or whatever, and I thought, yeah, so why don't I expand upon the ideas that I shared last week? So, here we go. Um, so you probably know that I have been a teacher for a very long time. 1992 is when I started teaching. And I have the opportunity to work with kids again because there's this urgent need for teachers in the world. And I had been retired for a while, but then it was like, we don't have enough teachers. There's not going to be anybody in these classes unless you come back. And I was like, okay, not my, not what I was considering, but that's fine. So I'm trying to do my best working with these students, getting them ready for going off into the world. And, you know, economics and finance and money has always been an interest for me. So I've been looking into like everything that's going on, not so much with politics, although of course that plays into it, but just like all the news that is like underneath the news. Like right now, it appears like things are going great on the stock market. Apple will be up one day and Microsoft will be up another day, and um, then it's Nvidia or some other tech company, and but then there's these other companies where their stocks and bonds aren't doing so well. And with my students, so like this week, I started trying to get them to understand how people buy stocks and bonds and index funds and even options. And it's been really interesting working with them, but also trying to like let them know that there are stock market crashes, and there was the great financial crisis, and then there was COVID, where the prices of everything went way down. And the more I've been reading and looking into these things, there are a few there are a few major concerns that are out there. So I just want to kind of share what it seems to be going on. And I'm not going to use any visuals or anything. I'll just do this uncut. But the thing that seems to be going on the most is, and I'm going to read a little bit from a script here, but it's the banks. So not necessarily the biggest banks, but the regional banks. Like in Michigan, we have Fifth Third Bank, and there used to be Comerica Bank. But oddly, there's this company down in Florida that called Holdco Asset Management that was looking at Comerica's paperwork and was like, I bet we can get somebody to buy Comerica and we'll make some millions of dollars on this sale. And so Fifth Third ended up buying up Comerica. But then there's these other banks that have been showing up in the news, like smaller regional banks. One's called Zions, and another one's called Western Alliance. They just basically went bankrupt a couple weeks ago, and that kind of freaked people out. And then there's like these other companies that have been going bankrupt. One of them sells auto parts, and apparently it was doing some weird stuff where it was like pledging auto parts in order to get loans, but not just to one company, like multiple companies. And then it would buy more auto parts with the loans, and then it would pledge those auto parts to a different company. And so there's like weird stuff going on in what's called the shadow banking or the non-depository institutions, something like that. So weird work, weird stuff going on. And there's a lot of YouTubers that are talking about stuff like this. They're really, really smart. One that I like is called Ox Talks, like OXTALKS. Very interesting. And yeah, so I would highly recommend you look into that. Now there's a bunch of YouTubers. There's a certain few that I really like because they talk about how Main Street is feeling Wall Street's pressure again. It reminds me of all that stuff that happened back in 2007 through 2009. And so Bordenero, Michael Bordenero, yep, he's a realtor. He appears to be a realtor. And today he's in San Francisco, I think. he walked around yesterday, did a little talk, like you knew it was just recorded because he was talking about stuff that happened yesterday on Halloween. And he really goes into details about what's going on with the housing market, not just in San Francisco, but I think he has a place also in Florida somewhere, a condo, like a condo house. And he talks about, how people are having struggles with electric bills going up and condo association fees going up and taxes going up and insurance going up. He's not the only one that has a channel like this. Like there's a woman who pops up in my YouTube feed, and she grabs a bunch of little TikToks, and she'll put them together and explain. It'll basically be people complaining about how tough it is to make ends meet and how it's getting tougher and tougher. And some people are, really freaked out, of course. So it doesn't, like, if you're looking back at this from years in the future, you'll be like, well, yeah, that was 2025. There were things happening in 25. But here in 2025 right now, it feels like things are kind of fine, like for some of us. Clearly not all of us, because this is where people are complaining. And it depends on the city, right? So in Grand Rapids, one of our huge industries is healthcare. And at the moment, healthcare isn't being squeezed very much. But there's all sorts of things that are going to happen in the next couple of months, which could really squeeze the amount of income that the hospitals and the healthcare system in Grand Rapids is able to bring in. And that, of course, will impact jobs, because if you have fewer healthcare workers, then they don't have money to go spend at retail and restaurants and everything. So that's going on. Something really weird that happened 2 days ago, this was October the 30th, Thursday, is that Affirm, and I don't know if you've heard of Affirm, but it's a buy now, pay later deal. So I've seen this on various different websites where you go to buy something, it'll say you can pay with Affirm, or there's like 3 different companies that are very similar. And the idea is they'll take what you're meant to pay, they'll divide it into 4 equal chunks. You pay just the first chunk. So like if it's a $50 bill, with my students, they have to buy their cap and gown and their tassel for some reason in order to graduate. And so they have to buy it through Jostens. It's $50, and they'll get the gown that has like the proper color on it, and they'll get the little tassel and the hat. But they can click Affirm, and if they're 18 years old, they can buy it with Affirm, and then they only have to pay $12.50 immediately on card or whatever. And then the next charge comes out 2 weeks later, and then another 2 weeks and another 2 weeks. So over 6 weeks, they end up paying the $50, and there's no penalty unless the payment doesn't go through. So you're setting up the payment as when you make the payment, you're setting it up, right? And you have to give them either your checking account information or probably credit card or whatever. I haven't got into it quite that much. But then if one of those charges bounces, then there's an $8 late fee, I think. And of course, if it bounces, that means the bank is probably going to have some sort of overdraft fee or something. So some people on these YouTubers like Michael Bordonaro are talking about how, these are not very high on the list of priority to pay these particular bills. And so when people get cash strapped, or if they lose their jobs, like all these people, Amazon is laying off a bunch of people, and Facebook's laying off a bunch of people, and even I don't remember, was it Ford or GM is laying off a bunch of people. There's a lot of companies that are announcing layoffs. Amazon also announced that they expect to grow, but they don't expect to hire anybody. They're just going to use AI and robots to do the work that would have been work for people. And that's being reported inaccurately in most of the media, because if you read the press release closely, they said that it's going to save the need to hire these jobs in the future. Anyway, so Affirm on Thursday, they went and said, okay, we got all these these buy now, pay later loans. We want to package them up. We want to sell them to someone. and they found what I'm just going to call a sucker. They found New York Life Insurance Company. New York Life said, well, we need something that has good returns. And so um, they they're buying, or they're planning to buy, not just a little of this stuff, but like basically all the loans that a firm makes, like continuously. So these loans that become bad loans, non-performing, they eventually won't be worth something, a lot of them. Um, they're going to be on the balance sheet of New York Life. And so the people that have insurance through New York Life, or the insurance industry in general, is going to be in trouble. I mean, it's already that the regional banks are in trouble with these weird things like the auto parts company that was like buying stuff and then getting loans based on the stuff they bought with loans. And then, even BlackRock had something, and I can't say I'm a fan of BlackRock at all, but they're interesting to pay attention to. What did they do? They had to write off a bunch of millions of dollars in debt that they had on their books. And the article that came out today basically said that it really was just not there at all. Like it was just this email string that they had that said they were getting this asset, which ended up being like they were scammed or something. I want to look in that one a little bit more. But yeah, so there's a bunch of these that are in trouble. So we got that going on. We have weird things going on with money in the U.S., with a lot of debt getting created, commercial real estate debt that, those apartment, the commercial buildings are not being rented. The rents they're not able to rent out enough space. They're not getting the revenue in. The debt, which they used to build these buildings, is going to be, they're not going to be able to pay back this debt, and they're going to have to go back to the market, because a lot of this stuff was like 5-year loans. They're going to have to try to get a new loan to replace the loan that they had paid off, because they're supposed to pay it off at the end of the 5 years or 6 years or whatever. So that's going to be a struggle. Apparently there's like $1 trillion worth of that. I mean, I could give exact numbers, but that's an issue. Where I live, near Grand Rapids, Michigan, there are a lot of these like apartment buildings that are going up right now. And it's not like we have more people in Michigan. I mean, there's fewer people in Michigan. Like every year there seems to be fewer people in Michigan. And yet we're building a lot. There's a lot more apartment buildings being built in all sorts of places. And all this, of course, is debt financed. There's already lots of places to rent and sell. If you go on Zillow for Grand Rapids, there's lots of places already. And people that are trying to do like Vrbo, like make that a business of theirs, or what's the other one? Airbnb. A lot of those people, I think, are going to realize that they are not really making much money. They prefer to sell and get out, and then there's going to be even more houses on the market. But I digress a little bit. So the third kind of big thing that's going on, again, going back to the tech sector, and one of my students, so we set up this $100,000 fake money account, like a lot of classes will do in high school, where you get to invest and see how you do, and you compete against your classmates to see how big you can grow your portfolio. So he went out and he bought all the tech stocks, right? All the meme stocks like Tesla and Nvidia and Apple and all these. And there have been reports, like in the Wall Street Journal, there was, I don't remember, it was an investigative report. The reporter was explaining that if you follow the money, the earnings that are being made by these companies are actually coming from another tech company. So like Apple will have a bunch of earnings, but it's coming from like OpenAI, and OpenAI will have a bunch of earnings, but it's coming from somebody else in the tech sector. And there's like this diagram, you can look it up online, where they're just kind of like pledging to pay each other to buy stuff. And so it looks like their sales are going up. So everybody's like jumping on the bandwagon. And a lot of people are like, AI is going to take over the world and all the jobs are going to be gone. So people are buying into it, and they're buying into this, what appears to be like a bubble. And if you look at the graphs Um, like there's this guy who used to be, I don't know if he's still associated with the University of Michigan. His name is Robert Schiller. And he was one of the people who predicted the great financial crisis of 2008-ish, because he was looking at how much debt was being created, how much spending there was, and how the amount of spending was no longer increasing at the same rate as it had been, like slowly accelerating the car from 0 to 60, right? Slow acceleration, but that the acceleration was, I mean, it was still going up, but not like as fast, and it was going to like level out, and then it was going to go down. Anyway, he has this index. I think it's the Case index or the Case-Shiller index, where he showed various ratios, price to earning ratios or something, and it was showing the Great Depression in the 20s up to 29, and it shows like this peak, and then it drops down, and then right now we're at the second highest it's been, even inflation adjusted. So that's not great. But the whole idea is that the tech sector, so Facebook had a huge write down or a huge loss on their stocks yesterday, Halloween, because apparently they said we're going to put a bunch of money into AI, and the people that own the stocks, I mean, this is speculative, right? Why stocks go up and down sometimes, but that it was because they said they were going to get more in AI that people were less interested, and so they were selling the shares. So yeah, and that's going on. So a few names, I'll share a few names for interesting YouTubers to listen to. The one that I think is like really kind of high level, his name is Nate Hagens. He had a really interesting talk just yesterday. He was talking about the 4 bifurcations and explaining how the the spreading of the rich, the ultra rich versus the regular people was increasing, and that's a bifurcation. He was talking also about a second bifurcation, which was like people who are really, really adept at using the AI tools as tools so that they can get more work done faster, versus the people that are not interested or just don't know how to do it, and how that's kind of separating people. And he has a lot of really interesting guests on also. So he not only does he do like a Friday chat, but he also does these really interesting interviews, and a lot of his people on are really clued in quite well. And if you connect this to Local Future, so Local Future was very much kind of a parallel idea to transition towns, and it all kind of came out of 2005, 2006 with the increase in oil prices, when we were all trying to figure out what was going on and why was it going on. And some of us, went big on that, and we either got slapped down or whatever, but there's still some of the same people around talking about the economy, and Nate is one of those. So very interesting stuff. Ray Dalio, he used to be with Bridgewater Associates, which was one of the largest hedge funds that did like incredibly well no matter what. He has got some really interesting videos, like high production values. Clearly he spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to make these videos. I mean, it looks like that anyway, but they're very much about how the economic system right now is set up to have these bubbles, and there's like 3 different wavelengths. Like there's this really long-term bubble, and there's like economic cycles, and then there's what it's, if you think of waves on a lake or something, or sound waves, it's just like these 3 different frequencies, and when they all hit a low point at the same time, you get this incredibly low point, just like you would get a node when you have 3 waves that are all intersecting at the same point, and you get this kind of explosiveness. So his talks are really interesting, and he goes a lot into history. A few more names: Edward Dowd, Dowd. He's on Twitter. He also has a lot of interviews on the internet. super interesting to listen to him. I think he also was part of a hedge fund with, I don't know if he was with BlackRock at one time or somebody else. Jeff Snyder of Euro Dollar University. He seems to have a really good grasp on things like the repo fund that the Federal Reserve has, which is not the same as repoing a car. It's a very different thing. But when banks need to put their money somewhere at night, I think that's the idea, or over the weekend when the banks aren't open. But listen to his channel. He's got a lot of good stuff. Michael Pinto, he's an investment advisor. I think he's also in Florida. He's got some really good observations. He's like managing portfolios right now, like actively managing them. He's got all these little charts and spreadsheets and things. He's keeping track of stuff because he sees it too, that it's very likely that the value of the markets is going to decline a lot and rapidly. And so he's trying to position all the money of his clients into things that are not going to do that. Danielle DiMartino Booth is another one who has a lot of information. So just trying to share some information with you. What I'm very, with my savings, I'm very risk averse. Like, I like to have even the 3% interest. But since I'm trying to teach about this stuff, and because 3% interest is nice, but I'd like to have a little bit more on my IRA and my savings. So I put it into, like, I had it invested in these index funds, both for stocks, US and international, bonds, US and international. And over the past couple of weeks, I've been like shifting it over to be much like safer. So index fund in really long-term US treasuries, like 30-year US treasuries. I think it's VGLT if you were to look it up. And there is this big push for the idea that the world currency might eventually flip from the US dollar to the Chinese, is it the yuan? Yuan? Do you have to say it that way? Yuan? Because China is trying to buy up, apparently is buying up all the gold that they can get. Gold mines, whatever they can get their hand of. And they're using the US dollars that they've accumulated from selling so much stuff to the US over the years to transition from US dollars to gold. And the idea is that China and Russia and Brazil and the rest of the BRICS, India, and all of them are attempting to create their own global currency so that when they want to buy oil or coal or whatever it is, that they don't have to get dollars first to buy the stuff. And that's kind of really weird to think that the other countries have to buy dollars first in order to buy things like oil. But apparently in 1947, there was this whole agreement called the Bretton Woods Agreement, which kind of set that up after World War II. So I bought a little bit of gold ETFs also. So my main concern is like, not so much for myself. I mean, that's a concern as well, but it's for people that I know who last time during the great financial crisis, their 401ks got hammered and the pension funds got hammered like really badly. And then people weren't able to retire when they hoped to. And of course, there was a lot of layoffs during that time. So it's useful to be paying attention and trying to position oneself financially so that, on the other side of things, you can come out okay. And so where does local future fit into this? Well, I think that's a little bit like still trying to connect with community, trying to live within one's means and live frugally, or however you want to say it. But also, for those that have assets, financial assets, trying to be like really mindful about. Don't just leave it there and let it just be there, because it takes a little bit of attention to, especially when things like are really hyped up, like the tech stocks right now, to get a little bit of perspective and be like, yeah, we've seen this before. You know, we were around when there's been other bubbles, stock bubbles, like especially at 2000, and I got smashed by that one too, with the internet bubble. So if you have any comments or ideas or thoughts, I would appreciate hearing it. And yeah, thanks for joining me. Really check out those other channels, because they, I'm sure, say it much more eloquently than I do. I'm just trying to, kind of direct you and to looking in some other directions. All right. I hope you have a great one, and I'll see you next time.